Welcome, thanks for joining me for your in-depth weekly astrology forecast for week commencing the 6th of May. I'm going to share with you shortly the event chart for the week and explore what we can all collectively relate to. But please stay with me. I'll go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces in much greater depth and share the chart wheel for each so you get a real feel for what this week holds. If you're new to my channel, thank you so much for joining us. This is very much a community. Please share any thoughts you have. If you're a returning visitor, all your views and interactions are truly appreciated. A lot of people have been subscribing of late. Thank you so much. If you've yet to do so but are a regular viewer, please click or tap on that subscription button, but also the bell notification symbol. Every time I drop a video, you should get an alert. Also, if you'd like to get your free written daily horoscope fired to your device each morning, I've been writing these for near to 30 years, and I also give, along with each of the 12 zodiac signs, an indication of the dominating planet of or influence of each day. So that helps us to understand the astrology as well as looking for our sun or our ascendant or our moon. To do this, please click on the link beneath this video or go to www.patrickarundell.com/subscribe. I'm also a consulting astrologer. If you'd like to have a one-to-one with me, please see my testimonials below. I don't edit these. When they come in, I just share them as they are, but please explore what other people have found working with me. On the screen now, I'm showing the event chart at midnight on Monday, and this will provide a backdrop for the whole 7 days. Now there's some big takeouts. This week, the Sun and Saturn are going to be on very good terms. If we think that Saturn is of course the ruler of Capricorn, which is very much about earth, its current host is very much about water and emotion. So Saturn in Pisces can flow through the base of the Sun in Taurus, so they are very conducive to one another. And because we have a wonderful new moon in Taurus on Wednesday, which does feed into the energy of Saturn, I think it could be a time that we can really adjust and really find and finesse ways to get our daily routines working that much more efficiently, perhaps be a little bit keener about what we eat in terms of diet, because the sign of Taurus is very much about food. But also it can be a time to be very practical, but in a positive way. We can also reap the rewards for a lot of hard work and discipline that maybe we've been investing into a creative project for some while, or perhaps just trying to deal with those increasing costs over the last couple of years. Hopefully we can, over the next month, get a little bit more stability into our situations. But as the week begins, Mars and Pluto are still in touch from last week's sextile. This is a furnace influence, and if you are someone with a very clear idea or a big passion around a plan, the combination of those two can really charge you up and be very motivating. But it's important to see some of the other relationships that are going on. The two ruling planets of Pisces are collaborating splendidly. We've got Neptune linking to Jupiter. There's around about 3-degree difference. But again, we're getting that Taurus energy linking with that Pisces energy. So being in touch with our instincts, Pisces, can be good in a practical way. But also recognizing that the sign of Pisces is the sign of culmination. So all the things we've learned, particularly with the lessons of Saturn, going through the previous 11 zodiac signs, means that this can be a time when we can use those accumulative experiences in a very practical but positive way to firm up the foundations of our lives. But you can see the position of the moon. It's in Aries. The moon in Aries can be very single-minded, and it's very close to the North Node. But look, it's in a semi-sextile to the Sun. So passion coming from Mars and Pluto is also coming in terms of our emotional situation, but that can work well with doing things that are inspirational or creative, or show our flair or artistry, and we could almost see straight away some results this week, which is very pleasing. Also, Mercury is linking once again to Chiron. This is the third pass, so if we are thinking about something to do with our identity, maybe what we're gaining now can really take hold, because we've had a couple of practices at this particular combination. So that gives us the flavour at the start of this week. But that new moon, which occurs on Wednesday, is particularly powerful because Uranus has been in Taurus full time since March 2019 and for 5 months in 2018. And I think for a lot of us, there has been a degree of instability around resources, around costs. And Saturn has a little bit of a bad reputation, but what it's doing here is anchoring the more exuberant energies of Taurus, because with Venus back in Taurus, our appreciation of the good things in life, whether it's those calorific goodies, or it is some luxuries or a nice glass of wine, we can be a bit extravagant with Venus in Taurus. But ironically, as this week goes on Saturday and Sunday, Saturn links to Venus in a very pragmatic way as well. So whatever you've gone through over the last few years, and it would be a rare person who hasn't in some ways observed or been affected by the increase in costs, I think there may be a feeling that this week is a time when we can start to really sort things out the best we can within each of our individual circumstances to gain that greater stability and security. So that's the backdrop for this week. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 signs. But if you would like to ascend above the zodiac forecast that are to come and embrace more serious astrology, if you give me 3 pieces of personal birth data of time, date and place, I can provide for you your life roadmap report. This will give you searing insights into the patterns that are played out in your life so far, but also a much more intimate understanding of how to work with the energies that you were given when you were born. In my special package of 30% off, you can also get your 12 months transits. That's the moving planets in the sky interacting with your totally unique blueprint. Now, if you know your tropical natal astrology really well, why not consider my draconic package? This is based on moving the North Node to the vernal point. And for people whose North Node is a long way from Aries, it can flip your chart in quite a significant way. This is your soul chart, your karmic energy. And we bring this into this world. It's the roots of our being. The tropical chart is the outcome. It's what we're going to explore and achieve in this lifetime. But some people actually relate much better to the draconic chart than they do their natal. Check out below for more information on that. Welcome Aries to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 6th of May. On the screen now, I'm showing the event chart. And you can see there's a cluster of energy in your sign, but most significantly your ruler Mars. And last Thursday, Mars' link to Pluto was absolutely brilliant. And you may have felt that your vitality really started to rise as last week came to a close. And as you come into this new week, I do feel there's a greater sense of optimism and possibility. And because Mercury's going forwards, because the node is next to the moon position, and Mercury's also connecting again with Chiron, I feel if you have been asking a lot of questions of yourself, particularly with your ruler in the 12th house, and along with Saturn, this is the opportunity you have to get back into the moment and really demonstrate your dynamism. And when you're on form, when you're hot, you're really hot. But this isn't necessarily going to be a week when you're just hot for a while and then it peters out. I feel that you can be hot with purpose. So in other words, you can inject situations with a lot of passion, a lot of determination and willpower, but actually see results. So a really constructive week is in store for you, particularly with Venus being in your second house. When Venus moves into the second house, as it recently did, that gave you an opportunity to improve your financial situation, but it's anchored by the end of this week by Saturn, just like the new moon is as well. So past hard work, past dedication, past skills can be redeployed in a fresh way now, potentially, or you can really start to see that you're making progress. I'm absolutely thrilled for you, Aries. You really deserve this. I hope you have a great week, and if you've yet to do so, please do subscribe to my channel. Welcome, Taurus, to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 6th of May. The new moon each year for each sign is a glorious opportunity to celebrate what makes that particular sign special. So think about your qualities, particularly with your ruler Venus in the mix in your sign at the present time, and that dynamic duo of Jupiter and Uranus. Now, they're actually going to be starting to edge apart by halfway through this week. They've been very close together since the last 2 days of March, and of course came into that exact conjunction across the 20th or 21st of April, depending on where you lived. So there's a lot of Taurus energy there, the enterprise of Jupiter, the innovation of Uranus, the drive and passion and energy of the Sun, but also instinctively having Venus in your sign when you have a new moon really points towards perhaps refining something you have a great amount of appreciation for, refining an individual project that's important to you, your personal appearance. Something can be refined, or something you can enjoy or luxuriate in this week, which defines what makes you you. What's not to like? Also, in support, you have Saturn. Saturn gets a bad rap, but it's in the part of your situation that's to do with your friendships, but your long-term plan. And unfortunately, over the last year, your long-term plan may have changed, or it may be that some people have disappointed you. But on this particular new moon, Saturn is really an ace for you, because it's saying that within all that's gone on, the people who really have been the solid citizens for you, Saturn, that you can truly rely upon, they're going to really make your heart glow. So there's a great opportunity to springboard forwards over the next month in a very fresh and dynamic way. What's not to like? But also, you do have a cluster of energy in house 12. So in order to make the most of this week, I feel that you also have to be conscious of the more shadow side of life. The areas of life that don't get talked about so much, our fears, our anxieties, the parts of our nature which can be less comfortable to us. So it's important to accept some of your vulnerabilities and fears at this time, because if you can do that, acceptance is such an amazing thing, and that's going to help to free up the energy to really embrace the power of the new moon. But critically, by the end of the week, as Venus links to Saturn as well, it means that what you are moving forwards with is truly meaningful. So if you're demonstrating to people your talent, your dynamism, and your flair, but also at the same time saying, well, look, these are the things that I don't find easy as well, that's going to draw a lot of empathy your way, a lot of understanding. But if you deny those things, I feel it will choke off the potential for the new moon to help you to set alight really all the talents and the personality power that is so much part of you. So a lot of people can warm to you over the next month, Taurus, but don't be fearful of opening up about some of the things that you may feel are not quite as strong as you would like, because actually that dignity, that humility will be something that people will really celebrate with you. Have a great week. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I would be grateful if you did so now. Welcome, Gemini, to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 6th of May for the ascendant or the sun or the moon. On the screen now, I'm showing your event chart. Now, Saturn's been in your 10th house, and there you can see him at the top there, for just over a year, which has been a burden, but it's also been a challenge or a prompt to test out your credentials in terms of your desire to raise your profile or showcase your talents. But you have had the much more shimmering and expressive energies in some ways of Neptune since 2012 in that area, and that's where this week's story begins. Both those planets are linking in very productively to planets in house 12. So the 10th house is where, it's where we gain recognition, or it's where we want to connect to the wider world, or it's where we interact with people who are influential. But the 12th house is where we want to withdraw a little bit. So how does that correlate? Well, I think essentially Jupiter in your 12th house has probably been expanding your interest in spirituality, healing, and possibly in some ways things like meditation over the last 12 months. But the link with Neptune, the two co-rulers of Pisces, is lovely in a way, because if you are someone who is a person who helps other people, particularly to do with your work, and you are very compassionate, or you're a healer or a carer, or you work in the medical profession, your skills, your sensitivity can actually be what people really appreciate about you. But also the fact that you can be discreet, because very unfairly Geminis have a reputation of being somewhat indiscreet. Now, of course, we can all let things slip at times. The issue with you is that you have such a lively, probing mind. Information is essentially your currency. So that could be why you're tempted at times to let the odd thing slip. But the fact that Saturn connects to the Sun does suggest that your discretion can be very important, not just this week, but over the next 4 weeks. And it's possible that you may be discussing something that is to do with your career, but it may not be an open discussion. Someone may want you to sign a non-disclosure agreement, for example, or just keep something to yourself as some information builds up. But it can be to your ultimate advantage, because from the 20th of May, Gemini, your month is going to get seriously sensational. But from now until then, there is some activity going on still in that more shielded, more protective 12th house. So there is those big contrasts. The 10th house is really up there and out there. The 12th house is much more shielded and protective. But Mercury, your ruling planet, is in house 11, very bubbly, brilliant for social interaction. And by the end of this week, it reaches the very cusp of coming out of its post-retrograde shadow. So when the retrograde began, 27 degrees in the sign of Aries, it's going to unravel from that by the following Monday to this one, the 13th of May. But I feel because Mercury is in such a close alliance with Chiron right at the start of this week, your ability to think into situations but also express points in a careful way, an intuitive way, because of the 12th house energies, I feel that that is going to be something people will appreciate, because you can see that Mercury actually links in a semi-sextile with Uranus. So thinking outside the box but delivering the message in a way that other people can be very responsive to. But of course you have Mars, the North Node, and the Moon very close together in your 11th house. So good friendships, good connections, sincere connections are going to be very important this week. And when it comes to your work, it may be as much as as what you know, but your deeper knowledge, your more psychological understanding of person kind is really very important. But let's also consider the role of Pluto and Mars. Last week, they came into an exact sextile for the first time in over 200 years between the signs of Aries for Mars and Pluto for Aquarius. And if you are someone who is learning something, or is a teacher, or you have a philosophy that you want to share with people, or you're a writer, you want to publish, or you want to interact with a group dynamically, as long as you're connecting to people for the right reasons, and they're people who really understand you, because of that 12th house energy, then this could be a really productive week for you, which takes us to that new moon. 12th house new moons, to be honest, are not easy. But this is the 12th house new moon, which I feel points towards a lot of experience over a long period of time coming back to you in a really grand way. It's sometimes the case in life that when people are older, which is different from experience in a way, because some younger people in terms of life years can have huge experience. Other people who are older may not have had those experiences. But whatever experiences you've had in terms of your life, your knowledge, your education, the jobs you've done, the personal experiences you've had, they can be very enriching on the back of this particular Taurus new moon. And it's important for you to recognize that some of the qualities and the things you've gained are not necessarily tangible. And that's interesting, because with Saturn in the mix, we often think about tangibility. But Saturn's also about karma. It's also about time. It's about patterns. But it's also about boundaries. And perhaps one of the lessons with the angle between Saturn and this particular new moon is don't overburden yourself in terms of trying to reach a goal or an ambition if it doesn't work for you in a more spiritual or psychological way. But for sure, someone's going to be really interested in what you have to say this week. It's just making sure that your output is directed towards the right audience. And with 12th house energy, it is important to stay a little bit guarded and keep just an acute awareness to who may have angles that they may not necessarily be openly displaying. So, it is the sector of hidden enemies in traditional astrology, and that's where that new moon is. But on this particular year, I think there's lots of merit there. And as the week draws to a close, Venus in your 12th house, which could see you feeling quite nostalgic for someone from your past, but it could also see someone get in touch you used to work with particularly. And because Venus obviously can relate to our partnerships and affections and where we show our love language, Venus in the 12th house is giving you a deeper understanding or a deeper need. So although you can manifest at times a very quick move in, a little bit of a flirty, frivolous side of your nature, this is a bit more of a serious time for you, but a serious time with a lot of potential. Gemini, have a great week. But if you've yet to subscribe to my channel, do so now. Welcome, Cancer, to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 6th of May for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now is the event chart right at the start of the week. We need to be mindful of your ruler, as always, the Moon, and it's in House 10, the sign of Aries. Now, the Moon in Aries can be a little bit of a feisty influence, but it's also it's very visible. So whatever you feel this week, you're likely to be more demonstrative. So if you're in a good frame of mind, you'll show it. If you're feeling a bit grumpier, you're likely to show it. But seriously, it's also very close to the North Node. And whatever you're instinctively being pulled towards at this time, in terms of your worldly interaction, do go with it. Just trust the process. But also, this is a week, of course, when we have the Taurus new moon, which for you is very much about your connections, your network, your long-term plan, can be your higher ideals, and you have the delightful presence of Venus in her home sign here. So there can be a real opportunity to connect and socialize over the next 4 weeks based on this particular year's new moon. But also because Jupiter and Uranus are in your 11th house as well, things can be quite fluid. There could be people coming into your situation, but people also moving away, or maybe you're the one creating the space. But House 9, which can be to do with being adventurous, but also more independent, that's very influential because Neptune links to Jupiter, the two rulers of Pisces. So Neptune in House 9 can arouse your fascination with travel, culture, spirituality, healing, but Saturn there is linking to the Sun. If you can learn something, house 9, which can influence your future in a productive way, the Sun, that new moon could be very, very good for you. So it could be downloading a course, it could be actually going away with a business trip that actually has some kind of real tangible outcome in a very positive way. But you also have Mars, you can see in house 10. Mars, of course, rules Aries, and having Mars here is going to give you a lot more extra assertiveness at this time, and also self-confidence. But it's linking at the start of this week still to Pluto. They came into an exact alliance last Thursday, which really could have been good for you if you are interested in business, or you're an entrepreneur, or you work in a role where you have to be quite creative. Mars gives you thrust, and you're a sign that can be wary of confrontation. But what Mars does here is just gives you that much more self-belief. So if you're applying for a job, doing a presentation, meeting somebody who is a decision maker, I feel that you can be very self-assured, and your friendliness, which can come through the sign of Taurus, can also be just as important as your skill set. Now, as the week goes on, Venus is linking up with Saturn. Saturn's an interesting planet. It gets such a bad celestial press, doesn't it? Saturn in the 9th house, it may be over the last year that something to do with a legal matter could have been testing you, or a contractual matter, or if you felt quite penned in, if you live in an environment where you don't get much space and freedom, you may have become much more conscious of it. But if you could get together with a friend or a partner and do something more spontaneous over the next 4 weeks, but that connects you to others, I actually thought it would be really, really good. And what Saturn does in a way is ask you to take what you've got to offer seriously and stand in your power. And Mars will certainly give you a lot of extra thrust this week. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Cancer. I hope you have a great week. But if you have yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be grateful if you did so now. Welcome, Leo, to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 6th of May for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now, I'm showing the event chart right at the start of the week, which gives us a lot of information really about what we can expect over the next 7 days. As always, we have to focus on your ruler. Your ruler continues in your 10th house. The Sun's very much about how we energize our presence, and it is about the self. So this is your chance to raise your profile. And because as the week begins, the Sun is aligning to the planet of fate, of karma, Saturn, in the part of your situation to do with shared resources and business. If you are serious about going for a job, doing a presentation, showcasing your talents, or starting a new venture over the next month, this can be a prime week to get the wheels into motion, particularly with this Wednesday's new moon, because the alliance with Saturn is actually really helpful. Saturn gets one heck of a bad celestial press, but this is a very supportive link. It's saying that whatever you try, as long as it's well thought through, structured, and you can apply yourself in a sustained and disciplined way, Saturn, you've got a really good chance of making progress. Also, if you come into contact with anyone influential this week, they can be impressed by the way you come across, the thoroughness you show, but also your preparedness to take on responsibility. Also, as the week begins, we've still got that simmering sextile between Mars and Pluto, which has given you a lot more energy over the last few days. So you can surf that, but direct that energy towards those worldly interactions. Now, if work is not your priority in your situation, perhaps you're older, it could be that you're going to take on more of a leadership role within your community, or spending more time with your children or grandchildren. And as the week draws to a close, it's Venus in Taurus, which is linking so productively to Saturn. And if you did want to spend time with those people, I feel that they're going to appreciate your experience, your wisdom, but also your steadfastness. Now, if you are considering anything to do with property matters this week, it can also be a very constructive week for you. Now, maybe that the situation you're dealing with is not quite as you would like, because obviously property can be very expensive, whether it's rental or buy-in. But if there is a way to make progress, you're likely to find the angles to do so. I hope you have a great week, Leo. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now. Welcome, Virgo, to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 6th of May for the ascendant, the sun or the moon. On the screen now, I'm showing the event chart right at the start of the week. Now, we need to be mindful of your ruler, Mercury. Mercury, of course, has been going through that big retrograde from the 1st of April through to the 25th. But although it started to go direct then, it still isn't out of its post-retrograde shadow. But by the end of this week, it really does return to the exact degree when the retrograde began. And what this suggests in your 8th house, which you can see on the screen now, and the fact that it's combining with Chiron right at the start of this week, if you have been doing a lot of soul searching about where you're most invested, be it in an emotional relationship, a partnership, or in a financial context, by the end of this week I feel that something that has been stuck or a little bit frustrating can unravel in a much more productive way for you. In fact, to be honest, Virgo, this can be such an exciting week for you. So if something has felt a little bit rigid, a little bit blocked, the fact that we have a new moon in your 9th house, that's very much about expansion, growth, optimism, possibilities. But it does link on Wednesday to Saturn. Saturn, the planet of potential limitation, which has been in your sector of relationships the last year. And maybe relationships in general have seemed harder going during that time. But if you think back over the last 12 or 13 months, I think the truth is you've probably learned an awful lot about your needs, where you want to set your boundaries, but also become much more realistic about how other people or someone you've encountered can respond. And perhaps someone has disappointed you. But the wonderful combination of the new moon in your sister Earth sign of Taurus, plus having Uranus, Jupiter and Venus all in this sign as well, is bringing a real lighter vibe to bear. So you could look at a situation that has felt difficult in a fresh way and see some positivity there. Or it's possible that someone's going to come into your situation over the next month who will be a much firmer and a much stronger ally. It doesn't have to be in a romantic context. It could be a friendship, could be a colleague, but your ability to see outside your immediate circumstances is going to be the clue to progress. So even if you are someone who's very thorough, very good at dealing with the individual elements of any situation, seeing the big picture at the present time will definitely be hugely to your advantage. Now later, as the week draws to a close, it's Venus in Taurus that's linking very positively to Saturn. And perhaps those people who are the solid citizens in your world, they're the people you can really appreciate this week. Perhaps someone's going to give you some very solid advice. You may even go to a professional advisor, such as a solicitor, accountant, or a counsellor, and their input can be very valuable, or you could play that role to someone else. I hope you have a great week, Virgo. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please help it grow and do so now. Welcome, Libra, to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 6th of May for the ascendant, the sun or the moon. On the screen now is your event chart right at the start of the week, and your ruler Venus continues in the part of your situation to do with where you're most invested. Now that can be in an emotional or even a more intimate context, or it could be in terms of your finances, because the sign of Taurus, very much about everyday money, but it's also about what we value. And because Venus is going to be moving by the end of this week into a very constructive link with Saturn in your 6th house, if you were wanting to grapple with some long-term financial issues this week, together with the new moon, which occurs on Wednesday, I feel that actually Saturn can be quite the ace for you this week. Now, over the last year or more, Saturn has been making you at times be a little bit weary, and perhaps your effort in helping other people has come at a little bit of a personal cost. Perhaps those demands and obligations that in the past you've gladly met have become rather more tiresome. But the good news about this week is you can actually see that where you've really applied yourself, worked incredibly hard, being very disciplined, Saturn, there can be a payback. And also the week starts with Mars in your sector of relating, linking brilliantly to Pluto in your sector of creativity and self-expression. So I feel that you're bringing a higher vibe into this week in the first place, but you can use that high energy in a practical output, but also potentially in a more personal one, because you can see on the wheel that Mercury, the planet of communication, of talk and thought, which went into that retrograde on the 1st of April through to the 25th, and maybe you haven't been quite sure how to approach or go forwards in one relationship or partnership situation. But Mercury starts this week in an alliance with Chiron. So even if you have had some kind of issue around a relationship which has been worrying you, by the end of this week, as Mercury emerges from its post-retrograde shadow, I feel that you will be feeling a lot more secure and a lot more settled about the potential that there is going forwards. And if you are a very entrepreneurial Libra, because you have got that pack of energy in Taurus, but you can relate so skillfully, that's part of the great gift you are given. If you can make the case that your hard work, your attention to detail, your nous when it comes to understanding how things work, together with your people skills, is definitely worthy of greater appreciation. Have a great week, Libra. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel yet, please help it grow and do so now. Welcome, Scorpio, to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 6th of May for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now is your event chart right at the start of the week. Now the big takeout is there is a lot of activity in house 7, very much to do with relationships, and also we have a new moon in that area on Wednesday. But just look, because Pluto and Mars, your two rulers, Pluto your modern ruler and Mars your traditional ruler, continue to collaborate very constructively. Pluto's going to have a massive effect on your home, emotional and personal situation in the years to come. He does rewind within its retrograde from the 1st of September to the 20th of November, back into your third house of beliefs, interactions with neighbours and siblings, and ideas. But this link with Mars is terrific if you do want to catch up with any of those tasks in your domestic sphere that maybe have got neglected. And if you are an avid do-it-yourselfer, you can certainly be very productive with this combination's help, because Mars is in the 6th house, very much about the details, where we can focus on making small but meaningful improvements. And of course Mars is very much about thrust, but Mars in the 6th house is not so needing of personal attention. It can be a bit more self-sacrificing. So the combination of these two could be very good for those do-it-yourself tasks, or if you're wanting to work from home, or you're wanting to do something more structural to where you live. The energy to achieve that can be very strong. But also Mercury in this part of your situation has been going through quite the journey. It went through that retrograde from the 1st of April to the 25th, and if there were niggles or snags around your work or some practical parts of your situation, a domestic appliance proved to be unreliable, it was hard to get an appointment at the doctor's or the dentist, the fact that Mercury is applying to Chiron for the 3rd time at the start of this week is really good if you do want to resolve something that has been delayed. But the big feature is that collection of energy in Taurus, and by Wednesday the new moon in your 7th house links to Saturn. Now, Saturn's been in your sector of romance, pleasures and self-expression over the last year. If it has felt a little bit uphill, getting the most from situations, or you have experienced some disappointments or sadness, it wouldn't be a complete surprise. But what Saturn in the 5th house can teach us is that the areas of our situation that are worth really battling for, we need to apply ourselves even harder. But this week you can get your rewards. So if you've got some really positive friendships, alliances with colleagues, or even a partnership, you can really celebrate it over the next month. If someone's made way, this can be an opportunity to begin again. Even if you don't meet someone immediately this week, I feel that what this new moon can do is help you to become much more sure of what you're really needing and what you really expect, and also what your boundaries will be going forwards. And once we're really sure about our identity or approach to situations, the reality around us can really change. And also Venus in your sector of relating, which is a delicious position for Venus to be, also links very productively to Saturn towards the end of this week. So even if it feels that your relationship glass is half empty at the moment, don't underestimate the experience and knowledge and skills that you've learned and how that prepares you for your future approach. But also it can be where you need to relate to people on collaborative projects in terms of business, working in a way where you both get something of what you need. I feel that the way you've been refining things in your approach over some time can really come back to you in a very positive way from here on forwards. It's been great speaking to you, Scorpio. Have a wonderful week. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please help it grow and do so now. Welcome, Sagittarius, to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 6th of May for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now, I'm showing your event chart right at the start of the week, which provides some idea of what we can expect. Jupiter, your ruler, is inching away from Uranus. So they came together within 3 degrees over the last 2 days of March, but exactly across the 20th or the 21st of April, depending on where you're located. But now they are edging apart beyond that 3-degree conjunction. And later this month, Jupiter is going to be moving into your sector of relating, which occurs on the 25th, ushering in a very exciting last 10 days, to be honest, of the month, because on the 20th, the Sun will be moving. Venus then moves into your 7th house as well. So the accent will be very much on relationships towards the end of this month. But this week, Jupiter being in your 6th house with Uranus and Venus is augmented by the Sun merging with the Moon. So the new moon, which occurs on Wednesday, suggests that if you have been struggling with vitality, a rather frustrating or unpredictable set of circumstances around the daily routines of your life or your work, it's possible that you get an opportunity now to reset in a much more constructive way, because as much as Uranus for the last 5 years or so has been causing at times a little bit of chaos, Saturn over the last year has been making your emotional world seem more oppressed by any instability. But now it all comes together in a much more meaningful and constructive way. And you often thrive when the vibe is positive. So Saturn feeding into the new moon on Wednesday is a good news story. But the 6th house is about those everyday matters. It can be about organisation. If you are someone who likes to have your home very neat and tidy, maybe that's not going to be how this particular influence presents itself. If you're someone who tends to be a bit more laid back, like we are, this would be a great opportunity to declutter, tidy up, take some clothes you don't need to a charity shop and create more space, and the energy will flow around more. If you are someone who's got all those areas covered, it may be some changes to what you eat, or just freeing yourself up in some way from some obligations that have become a little bit too challenging. But the other great takeout this week for you personally, Sagittarius, is that Mars and Pluto are in a fantastic alliance still, right at the start of the week. So your physical vitality, your enthusiasm are really going to be fed by that. So whatever practical strands you do need to grapple with, you can do so with much greater gusto. And also by the end of the week, it's Venus that links very productively to Saturn. Sometimes in relationships, it's the thoughtful, practical gestures that we carry out that mean as much as the more emotional or even romantic gestures in an intimate tie. And I feel that that's what Venus's sextile to Saturn can remind us of. If we do things to help people, whether it's at work or at home, it can be appreciated. So a big week, I feel, to make sense of some of the unsettled, unstructured, unsettling energies that have prevailed in recent times, and see how far you've come within all of that. But also, you're just going to feel much more fired up in terms of your personal energy. Have a great week, Sagittarius. And if you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be honoured if you help it grow by doing so now. Welcome, Capricorn, to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 6th of May for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now, I'm showing your event chart right at the start of the week. Now, we always need to be mindful of each zodiac sign's ruling planet. You've got just the one, which is Saturn. But also at the start of the week, just look at House 5. That's packed with goodies, particularly having the midpoint between the Sun and the Moon in this area of your situation. The midpoint is, if you like, the yin-yang of a chart, and this provides the backdrop for the whole week. But having Jupiter in the 5th house is enthusiasm central. Of course, it has been there for a year, and it had been linking very closely to Uranus. Now, just a little bit of a subplot of this week, they are going to stretch out from being within 3 degrees for the first time since the end of March. So that's interesting. But Jupiter actually goes on to forge a really lovely link to Neptune this week as the week goes on. So your communication, particularly your empathetic communication, can be very important. But Saturn, your ruler, is right at the heart of proceedings, because you can see at 17 degrees, it's linking within about 1 degree to the Sun at 15 degrees and 57. But by Wednesday's new moon, and the new moon in the 5th house is one of the most glorious of the whole year, because the 5th house is about joy. It's about where we're going to showcase our talents, we'll interact, we're going to be more sociable. Can be about our children and their pursuits if we've got them. But certainly having Saturn feeding into that new moon brings some stability. So the 5th house can promise a lot, but we need to see it through, and that's your great gift. You stick at things, and that comes from Saturn. So Saturn being in your 3rd house, linking brilliantly to the Sun and the new moon, and Neptune in your 3rd house of everyday communication, linking brilliantly to Jupiter, suggests you can have it all covered. People will think that what you say is what you mean, and that can give you an authority. People can feel that you're sincere. But your practicality here can merge with your creativity, so that's fabulous as well. But of course, we do still have activity in House 4 to do with where you live, your emotions and family activities. And you can see that Pluto, which moved on from your sign on the 21st of January, but it's coming back on the 1st of September for one final visit, is still linking at the start of this week, as it did at the end of last week, in a very constructive way to Mars. So if you were wanting to change some elements of your life, because Pluto is about transformation, and you needed to use the urgency and thrust of Mars to push those changes through, that's a very strong link. Now, Mars in the 4th house can be a little bit defensive and prickly, maybe around the home scene. If you are wanting to make some further improvements, your desire to do this needs to be met by the people around you, other family members or people who share your life. So The great news is that because that third house is so solid, which is how you can express your ideas, and also a slice of humour will be important as well. Someone wrote on one of my videos that honey is always better than vinegar, and I thought that was absolutely brilliant. You know, if we need to deliver a message, doing it with a little bit of lightness certainly helps. So there is stuff going on in your fourth house, not least Mercury by the end of this week finally emerges from its post-retrograde shadow. And if there has been a delay in someone doing something in your home, perhaps a tradesperson, or you've been analysing elements of your emotional or family life since Mercury went into its retrograde on the 1st of April, this is the third time it connects to Chiron. So the thinking you've been doing about your emotional world and perhaps your identity really is another area of growth this week in a constructive way. So all in all, it's looking very good early in the week, Capricorn, but it's looking good later in the week too, because by Saturday and Sunday, it's Venus that's linking so constructively to Saturn. Saturn has a reputation for being dour, but it is about fate, it is about boundaries, it is about understanding our limitations, but it's also about application, which you understand so well. So if there was somebody that you're attracted to or you wanted to work with, the ability to convey your warmth and great fun that you often have with that pragmatism is going to be something that will be very attractive. So don't underestimate that or those characteristics that you possess. I hope you have a great week. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please help it grow and do so now. Welcome Aquarius to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 6th of May for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now, I'm showing the event chart right at the start of the week. This will provide a backdrop for the whole 7 days. The big takeouts: Pluto in your sign may be in retrograde now, but continues to forge an incredibly powerful link to Mars. Mars in your sector of everyday communication and ideas. If you've got ideas you have a real passion for, express them with total conviction this week. Also, the part of fortune is in your sign too, suggesting just having the confidence to embrace your individuality really can be critical, particularly with Mars's help. Also, that third house, very much to do with talk and thought. Mercury, the planet which rules this sector, is blessing Chiron as the week begins. If you have been doing a lot of thinking about where communication hasn't quite worked out for you in the past over the last 3 or 4 weeks, it wouldn't be a surprise, particularly with neighbours or siblings. You may have had quite a lot of old memories coming up. But you can see the moon is applying to the North Node in this area, and you're going to move now from a period of self-analysis and concern to a much greater sense of certainty and optimism. One of the reasons for that is that by the end of this week, Mercury emerges from its post-retrograde shadow. It gets back to the degree where the retrograde began on the 1st of April. So if there has been a logjam or some cross wires, they finally will unravel productively. But let's look at House 2. Saturn, your traditional ruler, has been providing a little bit of pressure over the last year or more around finances, perhaps even around your self-worth. But that's actually linking very productively to the Sun this week. They come into an exact sextile on Tuesday, but Saturn blesses the new moon, which occurs on Wednesday. Now, the new moon in the 4th house is an opportunity to celebrate the things that really give us our emotional identity, or the areas where we feel most peaceful in terms of our environment, whether it's getting into nature, whether it's listening to some lovely music in the comfort of our home, whether it's getting together with loved ones or our extended family. All of those areas can really be positive for you over the next 4 weeks, but particularly because where Saturn has provided quite a difficult, abrasive resistance over the last year, I feel that you've really worked with that and become much more conscious of really what your value is. And even if you've doubted it at times, some reinforcements coming for you over the next 4 weeks. The people who really get you and care about you are going to let you know about that over that next month, and that is delightful. But also Venus, the ruler of that sign, Taurus, by the end of this week is also linking very well to Saturn. If you have been changing your home in any way, going through some renovations, doing some home improvements or redecorating, or spending more time on your garden area or outdoor space, the progress you've made can become much more obvious as this week draws to a close. So it's broadly a very exciting and positive week for you, Aquarius. I hope you have a great one. And if you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be honoured if you did so now. Welcome Pisces to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 6th of May for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now I'm showing the event chart, which gives us an idea of what you can expect over the following 7 days. Now last week we had a very dramatic alliance forged between Pluto and Mars. The first time in the signs of Aquarius and Aries for over 200 years, and they're still very influential in your chart as this week begins. Don't underestimate the past effort, knowledge, experience that you've put into a situation, because it could now be giving you a foundation, particularly in terms of your finances, to take the next stage of your life forward. So Pluto and Mars still very much in touch at the start of this week, and Mars in the second house, very much to do with life foundations. If you don't see something developing in terms of a financial context, those experiences you have can still shape your sense of worth. And it's important to respect wisdom. You know, we do tend to see things too much in terms of the material plane, and it's what's in our heart, our souls, that's so important. So do honour that. Also, the moon very close to the North Node as this week begins, another blessing. And also Mercury, which perhaps has seen some delays around money owed to you or some information over a contract. That's also revisiting Chiron for the 3rd time. If there has been part of you that has felt somewhat incomplete, this is another opportunity this week to really seal in and respect and validate what makes you special. Now that's all the developmental stuff, but we also have some dramatic stuff in the here and now, and that comes from the new moon, which occurs on Wednesday. New moons are very exciting because the sun and the moon are unifying. So the thrust of the sun, the passion of the sun, with the sensitivity and emotion and perception of the moon. And they're in your 3rd house, which is very quick moving, and it could mean over the next 3 or 4 weeks that there will be a lot of text messages and emails and whizzing backwards and forwards, and it's a great chance to express yourself, because Saturn over the last year has at times perhaps made it feel that you're rather blunted in your self-expression, or perhaps you haven't quite had the energy or the vitality in the way that you would like. It's been quite a limiting influence. But Saturn comes back to you this week by linking so well with the new moon, but also by the end of the week with Venus, also like the sun and the moon, in your 3rd house of everyday communication. So a conversation you have, not just this week, but over the next month, could put something in place that's really solid and very pleasing, but it also could have a financial undertone, or perhaps it is to do with just feeling better about what makes you you. So after all the headwinds that Saturn has created over the last year, and the disruption that Uranus has provided, despite some opportunities over the last 5 years, I feel that things can start falling into place, and some self-doubts can melt away. And by the end of this week, what you say and how you say it can gain a lot of respect from other people. So it's important to really believe in your message, and whether it's in a romantic context, a business context, or around friendships, people just realize that you have got an immense amount of experience, And the way that you assimilate information is something that's really worthy of being open to what you say and your ideas. Have a great week, Pisces. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please help it grow and do so now.